A recent incident involving New York's governor at a Buffalo church highlights crucial lessons about public communication, community relationships, and the importance of context in leadership messaging. Today, I want to discuss an important situation that occurred recently involving New York Governor Kathy Hochul during a visit to True Bethel Baptist Church in Buffalo. This incident provides valuable lessons about public communication, community relationships, and how context affects public perception of statements made by elected officials. During her September 7th visit to discuss inflation rebate checks, Governor Hochul made comments about how recipients should spend their money, including suggestions about avoiding certain types of purchases. Her remarks have generated significant discussion about appropriate communication styles, messaging strategies, and the complexities of cross-cultural dialogue. From a public communication perspective, this situation demonstrates how quickly statements can be interpreted differently depending on audience, context, and delivery method. What one person perceives as casual advice, another might view as inappropriate assumptions about community behavior patterns. The Bishop of True Bethel Baptist Church, Darius Pridgeon, defended Governor Hochul, explaining that she has a long-standing relationship with the congregation that predates her governorship. This highlights an important factor in public communication, the significance of established relationships and community context when interpreting public statements. Communication professionals understand that effective public messaging requires careful consideration of audience, setting, and cultural sensitivity. This incident illustrates how informal speaking styles that might work in some contexts can create unintended interpretations in others. The response from various stakeholders demonstrates the complexity of modern public discourse. Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado expressed concerns about the remarks, while the church leadership defended them, showing how the same statements can generate different reactions even within similar communities. Educational institutions that study public communication can use this case as an example of how context, relationships, and cultural awareness affect message reception. Students learning about public speaking and cross-cultural communication can examine how different factors influence audience interpretation. Business leaders should pay attention to this situation because it demonstrates principles that apply to corporate communication as well. When addressing diverse audiences, companies need strategies that consider cultural context, established relationships, and potential for misinterpretation. The media coverage of this incident reveals how public statements can be amplified and recontextualized through various news outlets and social media platforms. This demonstrates the importance of considering how remarks might be perceived beyond their immediate audience. Mental health and community wellness advocates note that discussions about financial assistance programs require sensitivity to the challenges that individuals and families face when managing limited resources. Effective messaging about economic support should be respectful and constructive. Public relations professionals can learn from this situation about crisis management and response strategies. Governor Hochul's subsequent explanation and apology demonstrate standard approaches to addressing communication controversies. Religious community leaders understand the unique dynamics of public figures speaking in faith-based settings. Churches often host elected officials, and these visits require careful navigation of messaging within religious contexts. Community organizing experts observe that this incident highlights the importance of authentic relationship building between leaders and constituencies. Long-term relationships can provide context that influences how statements are received and interpreted. The economic policy aspects of this situation involve inflation relief programs that many states are implementing to help residents manage rising costs. The design and communication of these programs require careful consideration of how to encourage responsible spending without appearing condescending. Social services professionals understand that financial assistance programs work best when recipients have clear information about effective resource management. However, providing this guidance requires respectful approaches that acknowledge people's autonomy and intelligence. Legal experts note that while elected officials have broad First Amendment protections for their speech, their statements as public figures carry additional weight and responsibility compared to private citizens. Urban development professionals recognize that economic assistance programs like inflation rebates can have significant impacts on local economies. How these programs are communicated affects community community perception and utilization. The incident also demonstrates the role of social media in amplifying and recontextualizing public statements. Comments made in specific settings can quickly reach national audiences with different cultural contexts and perspectives. Campaign management professionals understand that incidents like this one can affect electoral prospects and require careful navigation to maintain voter confidence and support across diverse communities. Nonprofit organizations that work on community development recognize the importance of respectful communication when discussing financial assistance and resource management with community members. Educational research shows that effective communication about economic programs requires understanding audience needs, cultural context, and appropriate messaging strategies that respect community autonomy while providing helpful information. The business community observes how public messaging can affect economic development efforts and community business environments. Effective communication supports positive economic outcomes, while divisive messaging can hinder development efforts. Community psychology experts understand that messaging about financial resources touches on sensitive issues related to economic stress, community pride, and historical experiences with paternalistic communication patterns. The tourism and hospitality industries recognize that public communication affects community image and visitor perceptions. Positive messaging can support economic development, while controversial statements may have negative impacts. Technology companies that work on communication platforms understand how digital media amplifies and spreads public statements beyond their original context. This creates new challenges for public communication management. Healthcare providers who work in community settings recognize the importance of respectful communication when discussing health and wellness resources with diverse populations. Similar principles apply to public communication about economic assistance. Labor organizations understand that discussions about economic assistance affect working families and require messaging that respects workers' intelligence and decision-making capabilities. Environmental groups that advocate for community investment recognize that economic assistance programs can support sustainable development when communicated and implemented effectively. Arts and cultural organizations understand the importance of cultural sensitivity in community communication. Public messaging that respects cultural diversity supports stronger community relationships. Transportation and infrastructure advocates recognize that economic assistance programs affect community development and require communication strategies that build rather than divide community support. Financial services professionals understand that economic assistance programs require clear, respectful communication that helps recipients make informed decisions about resource management. Academic institutions that study leadership communication can examine this case to understand how established relationships affect message interpretation. The bishop's defense of Governor Hochul demonstrates how long-term community connections can provide important context. Marketing professionals recognize similar challenges when developing campaigns for diverse audiences. Cultural competency and audience research become essential for effective messaging that resonates positively across different communities. Human resources departments in large organizations face comparable situations when communicating about employee benefits and assistance programs. Respectful, clear communication that avoids assumptions helps build trust and program effectiveness. Customer service industries understand that communication style significantly affects customer satisfaction and loyalty. Training programs often emphasize cultural sensitivity and respectful interaction techniques. Entertainment and media industries recognize how public statements by celebrities and public figures can be interpreted differently across various audience segments. This creates need for careful messaging strategies. Retail and hospitality sectors understand that customer communication affects business success and community relationships. Training employees in cultural competency and respectful communication improves customer experiences. Educational administration professionals deal with similar challenges when communicating with diverse student and parent populations. Effective messaging requires understanding community context and avoiding assumptions. Banking and financial institutions recognize that communication about financial products and services must be respectful and accessible to diverse customer bases. Cultural competency training helps improve customer relationships. Real estate professionals understand that communication with diverse clients requires cultural sensitivity and awareness of different community contexts and experiences. Medical professionals learn about cultural competency as part of patient care training. Similar principles apply to public communication about health and wellness programs. Social work professionals receive extensive training in cultural competency and respectful communication with diverse client populations. These skills translate to public communication challenges. Event planning and hospitality management professionals understand how cultural sensitivity affects successful events and community gatherings. Respectful communication helps ensure positive experiences for all participants. Looking forward, this incident provides valuable lessons for leaders about the importance of cultural competency, community relationship building, and careful consideration of communication strategies when discussing economic assistance programs. Effective public communication requires ongoing attention to audience needs, cultural context, and the potential for statements to be interpreted differently than intended. This applies whether leaders are speaking to familiar audiences or new constituencies. The response to this situation also demonstrates the importance of authentic community relationships that can provide context and support when communication challenges arise. Long-term relationship building creates foundations for understanding and forgiveness when mistakes occur. Educational institutions can use this case to teach students about public communication, cultural competency, and crisis management strategies. These skills are essential for future leaders in all sectors. Business organizations can apply similar lessons about the importance of cultural sensitivity, audience awareness, and effective communication strategies when working with diverse customers and communities. The ultimate goal should be public communication that respects community intelligence, acknowledges economic challenges, and provides helpful information without perpetuating stereotypes or appearing condescending. This requires ongoing education for leaders about cultural competency, community engagement strategies, and effective communication techniques that build rather than divide community relationships. Success in public communication depends on combining subject matter knowledge with cultural awareness, relationship building skills, and genuine respect for community autonomy and intelligence. Our society works best when leaders can communicate effectively with all constituents while building trust and understanding across diverse communities and cultural contexts.